Alien fingers bled as they frantically scrambled against the pristine Romulan control panels, frantically searching for the disengage impending planet collision course button that Stephen had scrubbed off. They shouldn't have hired a human janitor. Humans were too clean, now their ships were too clean. Stephen James, a 35-year-old janitor from Earth, stood proud of his handiwork in the Romulan spaceship crew quarters. He had been hired by the Romulans as a last-ditch effort to clean their filthy vessels. The Romulans were intelligent aliens, but totally apathetic toward cleanliness. Their clawed hands just pushed dirt around instead of actually cleaning, so they brought in Stephen, a human whose entire species was known for their cleaning prowess. Stephen needed this job badly. His cleaning business ventures had failed back on Earth. He was desperate to prove himself. When Stephen first arrived, his Romulan supervisor, Sirius, showed clear disdain for him. Sirius tossed Stephen a dirty uniform and pointed him toward a windowless broom closet to be his quarters. Stephen overheard Romulan engineers complaining that the ships could barely fly because of the thick grime coating every surface. The Romulans didn't think even a human could get the vessels functional again. But Stephen was determined to prove his worth. He started scrubbing every nook and cranny, scouring away centuries of caked-on alien filth. The very fate of humanity depended on Stephen's success. Earth was overpopulated and running out of resources. If Stephen could impress the Romulans with his cleaning skills, they might hire more humans to clean their massive fleet. Those janitor jobs could give humanity a chance to survive by spreading to the stars. But if Stephen failed, the Romulans would write off humans as useless, and Earth would continue its downward spiral. Everything was riding on Stephen's ability to make these alien ships spotless, functional, and efficient once again. Stephen attacked the ship's engine room with a vengeance, his determination unshaken by the skeptical glares of the Romulan crew. He donned his protective gear and waded into the heart of the grime, armed with an arsenal of cleaning products from Earth. For days he scrubbed relentlessly, tackling every surface, nook and cranny. He used brushes, sponges, and even toothbrushes to get into the tightest spaces, applying his own ingenious cleaning solutions to the toughest stains and build-up. At first, the Romulans found Stephen's fervor amusing, watching with smirks as the human toiled away in the filth. But as the days wore on, their amusement turned to annoyance. Stephen's cleaning frenzy began to disrupt their daily routines and interfere with their work. He was constantly underfoot, asking crew members to move so he could clean beneath them, or insisting that they vacate an area entirely so he could tackle a particularly stubborn stain. Sirius, the Romulan supervisor, grew increasingly irritated with Stephen's constant presence and demands. The human repeatedly requested access to restricted areas of the ship, insisting that they, too, needed to be cleaned. Sirius denied him at every turn, his patience wearing thin. As the weeks passed, however, the ship began to undergo a noticeable transformation. The once dingy and cluttered corridors started to gleam, the metal surfaces reflecting the light like mirrors. The air, which had once been stale and musty, now smelled fresh and clean. Even the most skeptical Romulans couldn't help but marvel at the change. But as Stephen's cleaning reached a fever pitch, strange things started to happen. Tools and equipment that had once been easily located in the organized chaos of the ship's various departments suddenly went missing, lost in the now spotless and uniform surfaces. Crew members found themselves spending hours searching for items that had once been at their fingertips, their frustration growing with each fruitless hunt. Sirius, fed up with the constant complaints and Stephen's relentless cleaning, decided to take matters into his own hands. He began to deliberately sabotage the humans' efforts, spilling oil and grease in freshly cleaned areas and hiding cleaning supplies in hard-to-reach places. He took a perverse pleasure in watching Stephen's face fall each time he discovered a new mess or realized his supplies had gone missing. But Stephen was no fool. He quickly caught on to Sirius's schemes and confronted him in a heated exchange in front of the entire crew. "I know what you're doing," he said, his voice low and steady. "You think you can stop me, but you're wrong. I will clean this ship from top to bottom no matter what you do." Sirius sneered, his clawed hands curling into fists. "You're a nuisance, human. You're disrupting our work and making everything harder. Just give up and go back to your broom closet. Stephen stood his ground, his eyes flashing with determination. No, I was hired to do a job and I'm going to do it. No matter how long it takes, no matter what obstacles you throw in my way. This ship will be clean, and I will prove my worth. The Romulan crew watched the exchange in silence, their eyes darting between the two adversaries. They could sense the tension in the air, the crackle of a challenge issued and accepted. They knew that this was only the beginning, that the battle between the human janitor and their supervisor was far from over. The confrontation between Stephen and Sirius had the entire ship buzzing. Crew members gathered in the mess hall, their voices rising in heated debate. The human has done nothing but improve this ship, one Romulan argued, slamming his fist on the table. Sirius is just jealous of his success. Success? Another scoffed. All he's done is make our lives harder. I can't find a damn thing in my own workspace anymore. The arguments grew more intense, with some even calling for Stephen's removal. Just as it seemed like the situation would devolve into a full-on brawl, Captain Tarok's voice boomed over the intercom. Sirius and Stephen, report to my quarters immediately. The two adversaries glared at each other before making their way to the captain's room. They entered to find Tarok seated behind his desk, his expression grim. Sit, he commanded, pointing to two chairs. They obeyed, still eyeing each other warily. Tarok leaned forward, clasping his hands. I think it's time you both knew the real reason Stephen was hired. He tapped a few buttons on his desk, bringing up a holographic display of a strange, angular ship. This is a Zorgan vessel. They've been a thorn in the Empire's side for years, thanks to their advanced cloaking technology. We can't track them, can't anticipate their attacks. They appear out of nowhere, strike and vanish again. Stephen and Sirius exchanged a confused glance. What did this have to do with cleaning? The High Command has a theory, Tarok continued. They believe the Zorgans have been using the filth on our own ships against us, planting microscopic devices in the grime to spy on us. That's where you come in, Stephen. The human's eyes widened. By cleaning the ships, I'm removing their ability to track us. Tarok nodded. Precisely. Your work is vital to the safety and security of the Romulan Empire. Sirius sat back in his chair, stunned. All this time he'd thought Stephen's cleaning was nothing more than a nuisance, but it was actually a crucial military strategy. I had no idea, the Romulan murmured. Few do, Tarok said. But now that you understand the gravity of the situation, I expect you to give Stephen your full support and cooperation. Sirius nodded, still reeling from the revelation. He turned to Stephen, a new respect in his eyes. I apologize for my behavior. I should have trusted that there was a good reason for your presence here. Stephen accepted the apology with a nod. I understand, but now we need to work together. I can't do this alone. As they left Tarok's quarters, Stephen's mind was racing. The fate of the Romulan Empire, and perhaps even the galaxy, rested on his ability to clean these ships. It was a daunting responsibility, but one he was determined to fulfill. He rolled up his sleeves, ready to tackle the task with renewed vigor. But this time he wouldn't be doing it alone. He had Sirius and the rest of the crew on his side, united in their mission to thwart the Zorgan threat, one spotless surface at a time. Da-dee-da. The acrid smell of burnt metal and spilled blood filled Stephen's nostrils as he surveyed the once gleaming corridors of the Romulan flagship. The ship, like so many others, had been battered and bruised in the fierce battle against the Zorgons, its sleek lines marred by scorch marks and jagged tears. Stephen picked his way through the debris, his cleaning supplies forgotten for the moment. There would be time to scrub and polish later. Now was a time for mourning, for honoring the sacrifices of the fallen. He found Sirius in the ship's command center, hunched over a flickering console. The Romulan looked up as Stephen approached, his eyes hollow with exhaustion and grief. We won, Sirius said, his voice flat, but the cost... Stephen nodded, understanding all too well. He had seen the casualty reports, the lists of names that seemed to stretch on forever. A chime sounded, and Sirius straightened, his face hardening into a mask of professionalism. The High Command is calling. They probably want to discuss the rebuilding efforts. But when Sirius opened the channel, it wasn't rebuilding that the High Command wanted to discuss. It was Stephen. "Your efforts were instrumental in our victory," the Romulan admiral said, his holographic image towering over them. "The Empire owes you a great debt. We want to offer you a position as head of shipboard maintenance, with all the privileges and authority that entails." Stephen blinked, stunned by the offer. It was more than he had ever dreamed of, a chance to make a real difference on a galactic scale. But even as his mind raced with the possibilities, his heart sank. He glanced at Sirius, seeing the hope and expectation in the Romulan's eyes. "I'm honored," Stephen said, choosing his words carefully, "but I'm afraid I can't accept, not yet." The Admiral frowned, his brow furrowing in confusion. "You would refuse such an opportunity, why?" Stephen took a deep breath, steeling himself. "Because my work here isn't finished. The Zorgons may be defeated for now, but they'll be back. And when they are, the Romulans will need every advantage they can get." He met Sirius's gaze, seeing the realization dawn in the Romulan's eyes. "I request to be reassigned to the front lines. That's where I can do the most good." Sirius opened his mouth to argue, but Stephen held up a hand. "I know what you're going to say, but this is something I have to do. The Romulans have given me a purpose, a reason to fight. I can't turn my back on that now." For a long moment, Sirius was silent. Then slowly he nodded. "I understand, but you'll need someone to watch your back out there. Someone who knows how you think." Stephen grinned, clapping the Romulan on the shoulder. "I wouldn't have it any other way." As they made their preparations to depart, Stephen took one last walk through the ship that had been his home for so long. His fingers trailed along the gleaming walls, the spotless consoles, remembering every stain and smudge he had battled over the long months. It was strange, he thought, how much the ship had come to mean to him. How much the Romulans, for all their alien ways, had become like family. But as he stepped onto the transport ship, watching Sirius and the others recede into the distance, Stephen knew that he was leaving a part of himself behind, a part that would always belong among the stars, fighting for a future he might never see. He turned his face towards the unknown, ready to meet whatever challenges lay ahead. For he was no longer just Stephen James, janitor. He was Stephen James, warrior, and he would not rest until the galaxy was safe, no matter the cost. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.